Shalom Lakem, Kal Yisrael. How's your peace, Israel? Welcome back to another video. And today we are going to be looking at the new moon. We're going to look at a few scriptures, but hopefully we're going to just stay in the between the Basura and the Tanakh. We will try to make it plain without having to use extra biblical text. You know, with extra biblical text, it's a lot easier to come to a solution into whether, or let's say not whether, but what the new moon signifies and how it's supposed to be observed or watched for, let's just say. But I'm going to come out of the book of Psalms or Tehillim, right? We're going to go into Psalms 104. Okay, Tehillim. Actually, we're going to read 81 first, right? And it reads on this wise. It says, "Sing joyously to God our strength. Raise a shout for the God of Jacob. Take up the song, sound the timbrel and the melodious lyre and harp. Blow the horn on the new moon, on the full moon for our feast day. For it is a law for Israel, a ruling of the God of Jacob. He imposed it as a decree upon Joseph when he went forth from the land of Egypt. I heard a language that I knew not. I relieved his shoulder of the burden. His hands were freed from the basket. In distress you called, and I rescued you, and I answered you from the secret place of thunder. I tested you at the waters of Meribah. Hear, my people, I will admonish you. Israel, if you would listen to me, you shall have no foreign god. You shall not bow to you shall not bow to an alien god. I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it." So we can see here that this particular scripture is talking about an instruction that the children of Israel were supposed to follow, or are supposed to follow. And just let me, if I was to reiterate, it says, "Blow the horn on the new moon, on the full moon for our feast day." So these are two occasions where one is supposed to blow the shofar, right? Or blow the trumpet, let's just say, right? But we're supposed to blow the shofar. So in order for you to fulfill this scripture, one would need to know when the new moon is, or the full moon. I think most people can understand the full moon. It makes a lot of sense in the fact that, you can search on the internet. But the new moon is something that typically isn't really understood that well, because if it was, we should all arrive at the same understanding, right? We're going to go into the next verse. We're going to chapter. We're going to go into 104 or Tehillim or Psalms. Okay, book of Psalms, right? 104. Okay, I'll read from verse 19. He said, "This the context is bless the Lord, O my soul." Right, and it reads on this wise. It says, let me read from. I'm going to read from 16. It says, "The trees of the Lord." No, actually, no. Should I go a bit further up? I'll read from verse 1, but then I'm going to skip down. It says, bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, you are very great. You are clothed in glory and majesty, wrapped in a robe of light. You spread the heavens like a tent cloth. He sets the rafters of his lofts in the waters, makes the clouds his chariot, moves on the wings of his wind. I'm going to skip down now. Verse 9, he says, He made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows when to set. You bring on darkness, and it is night, when all the beasts of the forest stir. The lions roar for prey, seeking their food from God. When the sun rises, they come home and couch in their dens. Man then goes out to work, goes out to his work to labor until the evening. So the important part here is that he said he made the moon to mark the seasons. Okay, so we can see that the moon, the new moon specifically, is when we're supposed to blow the shofar, as well as the full moon. Okay. Also, the moon is supposed to mark the seasons. Okay. So, without going into any extra biblical text, I'm gonna try to show you that in the scriptures, the origin of the new moon is actually hidden, without even going into the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, it's quite evident, because if you go and look at Chodesh, everywhere you see the word new month, it it's actually in the Hebrew, it says Chodesh, which means new moon or new month, which basically synonymous. New month and new moon is synonymous. But I'm going to show you, actually, in the book of Samuel, chapter 20, right, through the Spirit, that the Father actually left us a blueprint here, without having to go too far in deep into languages and things like this. You can come and find an understanding of where this new moon situation fits in, right? Okay, so we're going to read in the book of Samuel, chapter 20, right? His Hebrew name would be Shammah Wa'al. Okay, right, so let's read. It says, in verse 1, it says, David fled from Naoth in Ramah. He came to Jonathan and said, What have I done? What is my crime and my guilt against your father, that he seeks my life? He replied, Heaven forbid, you shall not die. My father does not do anything, great or small, without disclosing it to me. Why should my father conceal this matter from me? It cannot be. David swore further, Your father well knows well that you are fond of me, and has decided Jonathan must not learn of this, or he will be grieved. But as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, Whatever you want, I will do it for you. Okay? Verse 5. This is an important part. It says, David said to Jonathan, Tomorrow is the new moon. Okay? Notice he said, Tomorrow is the new moon. And I am to sit with your king at the meal. David's now saying, let me go, and I'll hide in the countryside until the third evening. Why has he said third evening? Right? He said third evening. If your father notes my absence, you say, David, ask my permission to run down to his hometown, Bethlehem, for the whole family has its annual sacrifice there. If he says good, your servant is safe. But if his anger flares up, know that he is resolved to do me harm. Deal faithfully with your servant, since you have taken your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. And if I am guilty, kill me yourself, but don't make me go back to your father. Jonathan replied, don't talk like that. If I learned that my father was resolved to kill you, I will surely tell you about it. David said to Jonathan, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? Jonathan said to David, let us go into the open, and they both went into the open. Okay? It says, then Jonathan said to David, by the Lord, the God of Israel, I will sound out my father at this time tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is the new moon. Okay? Just bear that in mind, right? Tomorrow is the new moon. It says, on the third day, right? What's this third day to deal with? Why do they say third day? What is that in comparison to? Third day of what? You understand? You got to think about this. Is it the if you're going to say third day, it's going to be in comparison to something. Is it the third day of the week? Third day of the month? What are they referring to here? Right? It says, and if his response is favorable for David, I will send a message to you at once and disclose it to you. But if my father intends to do you harm, may the Lord do thus to Jonathan and send more if I do not disclose it to you and send you off to escape unharmed. May the Lord be with you as he used to be with my father. Right. It says, nor shall you fail to show me that. Show me the Lord's faithfulness while I am alive, nor when I am dead. Shall you ever discontinue your faithfulness to my house, not even after the Lord has wiped out every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth? Thus has Jonathan covenanted with the house of David. May the Lord require the enemies of David. Okay? It says, Jonathan, out of his love for David, endured him again, for he loved him as himself. Jonathan said to him, tomorrow, which we know is what? It says he's about to say, tomorrow will be the new moon, right? And you'll be missed when your seat remains vacant. So the day after tomorrow, right? So that's tomorrow is the new moon. He's talking about the day after that, right? Let's hear it. It says, so the day after tomorrow, go down all the way to the place where you hid the other time, and stay close to the Ezel stone. Now I will shoot 3 arrows to one side of it, as though I were shooting at a mark, and I'll order the boy to go and find the arrows. If I call to the boy, hey, the arrows are on this side of you, be reassured and come, for you are safe and there's no danger, as the Lord lives. But if instead I call to the lad, hey, the arrows are beyond you, then leave, for the Lord has sent you away. As for the promise we made to each other, may the Lord be a witness between you and me forever. Right, okay, so now we're in verse 24. It says, David hid in the field. The new moon came, right? So now it's the next day. It says the new moon. It says the new moon came, and the king sat down to partake at the meal. The king took his usual place on the seat by the wall. Jonathan rose, and Abner sat down at Saul's side, but David's place remained vacant. That day, however, Saul said nothing. It's accidental, he thought. He must be unclean and not yet cleaned. But on the day after the new moon, so this is the day that he's going to go and find David in the field and shoot the arrows, right? This is the day after the new moon. He says, but on the day after the new moon, the second day, right? David's place was vacant again. Why is it saying the second day? What's the second day in comparison to? Right? It says David's place was vacant again. So Saul said to his son, Jonathan, why didn't the son of Jesse come to the meal yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David begged leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, "Please let me go, for we are going to have a family feast in our town, and my brother was summoned me to it to do me a favor. Let me slip away to see my kinsman. That is why he has not come to the king's table." Saul flew into a rage against Jonathan. You're okay. I think I've come to the point. Yeah. So actually, do you know what it is? Is okay. Yeah, yeah, no, no, it still continues. Okay, so it says, "Why didn't the son of Jesse come to the meal yesterday or today?" Jonathan answered Saul, he begged, leave me to go to Bethlehem. He said, "Let me go, for we are going to have a family feast in our town, and my brother has summoned me to do it. Summoned me to it. Do me a favor, let me slip away to see my kinsman. That is why he has not come to the king's table." Okay. Saul flew into a rage against Jonathan. You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, he shouted. "I know that you side with the son of Jesse, to your shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness. For as long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingship will be secure. Now then, have him brought to me, for he is marked for death." But Jonathan spoke up and said to his father, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" At that, also, what has he done? At that, Saul threw his spear at him to strike him down, and Jonathan realized that his father was determined to do away with David. Jonathan arose from the table in rage. He ate food on the second day of the new moon because he was grieved about David and because his father had humiliated him. Let's stop there. So we can see that they were talking prior, the day before the new moon, okay? Speaking about how they were going to have a feast on the new moon, okay? Now, on the new moon, David is hiding in this field. They're going to reconvene after this new moon, right? They said that they will reconvene on the day after, right? Now, the meal has happened, and he's now seen that Jonathan has seen how Saul, his father, is acting a certain type of way, and it's basically declared that he wants to kill David, right? But the interesting part of the scripture is that at the end it says that Jonathan rose from his table in rage, right? This is on the new moon, right? He ate no food on the second day of the new moon. What does that mean? What does that mean when it says the second day of the new moon? What kind of English is that? There's something going on here because we've been reading and it says that the new moon is a particular day, right? Where they were supposed to have a feast, right? But then you can see here it says that on verse 34, it says, "Jonathan arose from the table in a rage. He ate no food on the second day of the new moon." How can it be the second day of the new moon if the new moon is a day in itself? Unless the new moon actually is something that points to what, as we read? Let's go read it. How can it be the second day of the new moon? What does that mean? What did we read in Psalms 104? It says, "Bless the Lord," verse 1, "O my soul, O Lord my God, you very great. You are clothed in glory and majesty, wrapped in robe of light. You spread the heavens like a tent cloth. He sets the rafters of his lofts in the waters, makes the clouds of his chariot, moves on the wings of the wind." Let's skip to verse 19. It says, He made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows when to set. So when we read this scripture here, where it talks about that Jonathan arose and he did not eat any food on the second day of the new moon, this is only pointing to the fact that the new moon is an indication of a new month, because the new moon actually is a day, but when that day is actually, let's just say, has come about, right? Then the new moon has been established. It's also another way of measuring a certain period of that particular month. Why? How do we know that? But why has he said he ate no food on the second day of the new month or new moon? I've even misrepresented. Well, I haven't misrepresented it, but I've just replaced it, which I was actually thinking it, but I was actually saying I was supposed to say something different. But it says he ate no food on the second day of the new month. You could technically replace this new moon. Sorry, you could actually replace this and say he ate no food on the second day of the new month, or second day of the month, right? So that basically is showing you, right? Anyone can read in the book of Psalms 20, right? If you read the story about how David was, scared to meet Saul due to the fact that he was looking to kill him because the kingship had passed on to David, right? But this particular scripture, even in if you read in the King James versions and some of it, even in some of those versions, it's even more plain because it basically it doesn't really necessarily say new month in a lot of theirs. This one actually says new month, new moon, sorry. But the others say new month. Let me actually check. What did this one say? This is ESV. If I was to go Samuel second Samuel, second Samuel 20, right? Okay, so I read what was it, verse 34. It said Jonathan rose from the table in rage. He ate no food on the second day of the new moon. This is coming out of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Tanakh. This is a finer translation because it doesn't have multiple translations. It's going straight from the Hebrew into the English. So you really barely find any um, translational issues, right? And especially if someone that can read the Hebrew, you can just go directly into Hebrew. This actually has, I don't know if you can see, but it has the Hebrew text in it. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it has the Hebrew, it has the English and the Hebrew, right? Anyway, let's just see what the ESV says. 20 verses what 34. Well, hold on. Oh, it's First Samuel. It's not Second Samuel. Yeah, so 34. It says Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger. Yeah, Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger, and he ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. You see, so even when precepted, this is now even with the different translations, it's actually even more evident that the new moon is the new month. Why do I keep going on about this? Well, I've done a video on about getting on Yah's time, and one of the main issues I find, not even just with the children of Israel, I'm talking about the whole world, is that we're out of sync. We're not in alignment with the Father's time. And because we're not in alignment with the Father's time, things are happening and no one can really make heads or tails of what is happening. They're just you just people are just reacting. They're constantly being surprised. And all these things are happening. And people, as it talks about in the book of Jeremiah, that people will be dismayed by the signs of the sky, right? But when you get on the Father's time, it instills patience. You don't need to rush things. You actually life becomes a lot more um enjoyable. It's actually very spontaneous because you feel safe. Life is safe. You have peace. That's something that's hard to find these days. People have so much wealth, so much things, but they don't have peace. You know, there's not a time when they can actually sit quietly for an hours on end just to do nothing. You know, that's peace. Some people can't do that. They're so stuck in this rat race. Right? They can't sit still because the clock is ticking. Some of them are racing to their death, and they're trying to make that life that they've always wanted. Constantly comparing themselves to this, that, and the other. Right? Chasing something that is never really fulfilling you at all. You see what I'm saying? One needs to find peace in oneself, and the easiest way to find peace is to get on Yah's time. I always address this because that's one of the things that the Father blessed me with, is that he showed me how to get on his time, so that I knew when things happen and why things happen. And because I know why and when and how and all this sort of stuff, I can live a very simple life and not bat an eye about the strange things that are occurring on the world stage, because I know that the redemption draws nigh, right? So if you're kept in the loop and you're being invited to his board meetings, then you'll smile a lot. And that's what I pray, that my brothers and sisters, yeah, you see the Father's face and you really pray to get on his time, because he has a time. He has cycles of things. And it's all throughout the scriptures. It's not that it's not a thing where, oh, you know, that's the law. You don't need to do that stuff. No, it's beyond that. These are not, these cycles is beyond instructions. Everything happens on a particular time frame, dates, right? The Father has time cycles where he does things. If you understand those times and cycles, your life just flows naturally. The spirit comes in and goes out when you know it comes in and it goes out. Some people are walking and the spirit comes in and they don't understand the spirit has come in. And then the spirit goes out, and some people don't understand that the spirit has gone out. So because you don't understand when the spirit is coming in and when it's going out, you can misjudge a particular situation. You can make bad assumptions. There's a saying, they say assumptions make bad conclusions, right? If you don't know accurately, you can make bad assumptions. And those assumptions can be very far from what is the reality. This is why I stress that people should try their best to get on Yah's time. Because when you get on Yah's time and understand the cycles of things, I don't think it's very difficult for you to fall short. I I really do I really do stress that it's very difficult for you to fall short, because when the Father says sit, you can hear him clearly to sit, right? Many voices can be in your head, right? It's not only the Father that can speak to you. So how do you know that the Father's speaking to you? If you're not regularly going to his board meetings, whose board meetings are you going to? Huh? These are the things you got to think about. I'd advise you get yourself into some of his board meetings, right? So then you know when the spirit is coming in and when it's going out. You can then what you call it? Submit. You see? You can, yeah, submit everything to him, right? Because you have full trust that the Shabbat, when it comes in, you know that's the Shabbat. You know that's the day you're supposed to rest. It's not the other day, right? Because this day is when the spirit gets poured out. So you know that you're resting on the right day and you're being rejuvenated. You see what I'm saying? If you don't know, then when times gets hard and you really need that day to be the Shabbat, it's a difficult thing, right? Anyway, I don't want to talk too much. The idea is that the new moon is the new month. One has to understand these things. If you're the children of Israel, I don't know how you're still trying to use a Roman Gregorian calendar to dictate the cycles of things. This Adam did not have a Roman Gregorian calendar. Does it not say in the book of Daniel that they were going to change times and laws? If we believe in these scriptures, why aren't we applying them? It don't make no sense. Anyway, I only hope the reader and listen to this word will be blessed by this. May Yahweh bless you. May Yahweh keep you. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you. May Yahweh be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you. And may Yahweh grant you everlasting peace in Yahshua HaMashiach's name I pray. Selah.